as well after we're done. So with that, I guess, Leslie, you're going to call roll and any announcements?
Yes. Okay, so since we're conducting this meeting electronically, we do have to announce that in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to Executive Order 51 in Tennessee and House Bill 29 and 30 in Virginia, a determination has been made by the board that meeting electronically and prohibiting the physical presence of the public at the meeting is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare for all concerned. I will do the attendance roll call. Chairman James Phillips.
Here.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins.
Present.
Blake Ayler.
Present.
Chase Milner.
Present.
Rhonda Sawyer. She's there.
She
Present.
There we go.
Amber Torbett.
Present.
And Jennifer Williams.
Present.
Okay. Attendees, you can see and hear the panelists, but if you want to communicate with us, you'll either need to put a question in the Q&A or in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. There was an option to raise your hand. And then to be recognized, there are 2 different opportunities for public comments that we'll hit in just one at the beginning and one at the end of the meeting. So if you want to speak, just let us know, and he will unmute you to allow you to communicate with the board. And I believe that's it. So we can move on to the next, to item number 2.
You're on mute, James.
Sorry about that. We've got public comments on agenda items, and so I believe people submitted these beforehand if they had some. And
no, that's how the BMA is doing it. We just we allow live public access to this meeting. So,
okay, well, if you're watching and you've got questions or comments on the agenda items, we'll let you speak here in just a second. I'm going to read a little note about that. If you have comments on anything else, that will be after the meeting. So those wishing to make a comment pertaining to any of the agenda items may do so at this time with a 5-minute time limitations. Comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item will be heard at the end of the meeting. So do we have anyone with comments?
Okay, I believe Ken raised his hand just a second, so I'm going to Ken Taggart. I'm going to allow you'll be allowed to talk now, so we should be able to hear you. Go ahead and try, sir.
Muted.
Yeah, you're muted right now, Ken.
Push here. I'm not. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Of course, my comment, as it's always been, is about the Highway 36 project, Fort Henry Drive. My comment is, and I think all my neighbors and fellow property owners would agree with me that we would very much love to see a 5-lane with 2 sidewalks and the whole bit, but we are more concerned about the cost of the project doubling. The price of the project has already been the major problem with getting this finished, or at least that's what we've been told since 2008. And what we would much rather see is just to get it done. If it's only a 4-lane, fine. If there's any additions that need to be done, what we would rather see is public sewer being added. And I think that's imperative to doing any kind of economic development. I mean, you got to have infrastructure first. You got to have your electric, number 1, your water, number 2, but the public sewer's got to be there too. If you got more than 4 or 5 employees and it's just, it's imperative that you have your sewer. And if we're gonna plan this out to have development along this highway, we're gonna need the sewer. It's something that can't be ignored. So what is your stance on that?
Well, we've had this discussion before that TDOT does not do sewers. So this is strictly a road project. Sewer.
But I'm not talking to DOT right now. I'm talking to y'all. You guys are supposed to be the planners.
This is a DOT funded project. It's an Improve Act project that's state funded. So
But I think you guys are not understanding the cost of putting the sewer in after the DOT puts this highway in. It's going to be phenomenal too, because who's going to want to cut up a brand new highway to start putting trunk lines across the highway? And if you burrow underneath, that's very, very expensive. And the smart thing to do is to put it in first in conjunction with putting the highway in and getting it done all at one time. You can put the sidewalks in anytime. Sidewalks are, they can be put in, 10, 20 years later on. Besides that, I think it's best to think about these sidewalks and whatever. You go down to the Boones Creek area and sit there for a while and see how many people are using the sidewalks down there. I think it's better to spend the money, get the biggest bang, serve the most people for the money we're spending here. And I think that we're better served by putting in the public utilities and not worry about the cosmetics until later. Sidewalks can be put in without disrupting the highway or tearing it up or anything. It's better to do it now. It's going to be a lot more cost effective. It's going to help the economic development. Look at Boones Creek, the Boones Creek area. They've got they got the infrastructure in, and that place is booming. Things are going up in there all the time. You've got to have the public utilities. That's just the basic. You can't have hotels or large businesses with a lot of employees and customers. Even when you got dense residential construction, you can't have apartments and condos and stuff densely put in without the sewer. It's just the makeup of the property around here with all the rock and the soil. You can't do it. You can't do it with with private septic. It just doesn't work in this area. You'd have to have a decent sized business. You'd have to have 10 acres additional just to put in the private sewer. It doesn't work. If you expect this to grow and to get if you want a return on your investment in tax dollars, you have to put the infrastructure in to get the businesses that are going to pay you back for it. It's an investment that you can't overlook. That's my spiel.
Got a question. The new section that's being proposed, the Improve Act section, is that mostly in the county? It's
part of it.
I think all but a small portion in the county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'd be something that you'd have to talk to the county about.
But you guys are the ones who are you are the ones who are interacting with the DOT. As far as I know, the county's not even doing that.
But this is a transportation board. We're worried about the roads and sidewalks and transportation. We do not deal with sewers and stuff. So that would be up to whoever would do the sewers out through there.
Like, Ken, this is James. I'm the chairman of the board, and I've been on about a year now. But I think what you're asking for is this is the equivalent of what we're dealing with on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen right now. Who people are upset at the school board are coming to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen asking us to make changes. That's not our lane. And so that's what I think Leslie's trying to say here is you're coming to TDOT and to the MPO to put in sewer and asking for sewer. That's not in our lane. The MPO does nothing with sewer and hasn't been in that business and is not getting in that business. So if you want to talk to somebody about sewer on that road, you would go to the county. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong with that.
And I've talked to the county and they throw it back to you. I mean, it's like, you know, everybody's tossing the ball back and forth. Should be a combined effort. You know, you guys are combined, the county and the city need to work together to get these things done, because it's gonna, once the new highway, like I said, once you put the new highway in, it's going to be so much harder to put the trunk lines and stuff in, especially when they have to cross the new highway. Who's going to want to go in there and start cutting up a brand new highway to put the sewer in later? Nobody. And it just doesn't make sense not to do it now. It's going to be so much cheaper to do it now and get it done.
You know, you may be right, but you're still talking to the wrong board. You need to talk to the county officials.
There's legally, there's nothing this board can do to help you when it comes to sewer. So, I mean, we can hear your story. If we see somebody, we can tell them, but there's legally nothing this board can do to help you with putting in sewer.
Well, that's not the only issue. My issue, and like I said, my neighbors and fellow property owners around here, I'm sure would be just happy to have a 5-lane. Obviously, it's better than having a 4-lane. You're not going to restrict the traffic when somebody's making a turn. That would be a definite advantage. And it would be nice to have sidewalks on both sides, but the price of this has been prohibitive all along. All we kept hearing after 2008, we don't have the money, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. And now you're virtually doubling the price of this thing. I think most of us would rather have a 4-lane and get it in there than to have a pie in the sky, a 5-lane with 2 sidewalks that never gets done. This project was supposed to have been done in 2007. We are almost 14 years past that and haven't seen a thing happen yet on this highway. Not to mention get it finished, and we can even get it started. We want to get it done, you know. You can put your sidewalks in later. The sidewalks can be put in any time.
Well, we're definitely past the 5-minute time limit, and this will be discussed on a couple of other agenda items. So, I mean,
well, can I just say that I'd like to vote no on this? I mean, it's like I said, I love to have a 5-lane and I like to have the double sidewalk and all that. But I think the cost is going to push it back even farther. And if that's the case, I say no, do the 4-lane and get it done. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
The last thing I'll say about this right now is this is an Improve Act project. So it has gone through the legislature. There are specific requirements for Improve Act projects. So I don't think 4-lane, 5-lane, the cost or anything like that is going to affect getting the project done, because it is an Improve Act project. Okay.
Well, what have they set a start date yet?
Well, they're in the early stages. We're going to discuss this at the long range plan amendment in just a few minutes, and then we'll do project updates later in the agenda as well.
All right, let's move on. Let's see if do we have anybody else that wishes to make a public comment on agenda items? Michael, you just let me know.
I'm not seeing anyone. Leslie, if you don't mind to go ahead and share your screen so you can put the agenda up.
Doing that now. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Still nothing else.
All right, I don't have a gavel, but I can bang on the desk and we'll just we'll call an ending to the public comment and on agenda item section of the agenda. Next, we will go on to the approval of minutes from the June 4th, 2020 meeting. And I hope everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. And I'll leave it open for any comments on the minutes here for just a minute.
I'd also remind you, when you make a motion or a second, please state your name, just since we're doing this electronically. So state your name for the motion and the second, and then I'll do the roll call vote for each item.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jimmy. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
right.
This is Rhonda. I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. If Leslie, you will call the roll, please.
Okay, Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Aye.
Amber Torbett,
Aye.
and Jennifer Williams.
Aye.
All right. The minutes have passed unanimously. All right, next we've got item number 4, the Kingsport Multimodal Access Grant, the resolution of support, and Bill Albright is going to present this.
Thank you, Chairman. And glad to have everybody here with us today, or actually wherever you are today. City of Kingsport is applying for a new multimodal access grant sometime this fall. The multimodal access program is offered by TDOT. It's a state-only program. There's no federal funds involved and very little federal regulations. Program is primarily to improve or build new non-motorized transportation facilities. That includes bike and ped with connections to public transit systems. But the focus is particularly on new sidewalks and, according to regulations, along state routes. Back when the program started about 6 years ago, you were allowed to apply for a project that was within a quarter mile of either direction of a state route, and they've dropped that. It has to be on the state route now. So none of the quarter mile rule has been dropped. This is the 3rd year of a 3-year offer, just much like the last time. It was 3 years. So this is 6th year. But I understand that they've kind of dropped the 3-year ideas just coming on an annual basis. So that the 3-year thing doesn't mean anything now. The city of Kingsport in the first 3 years was awarded 2 separate grants to construct sidewalks on State Route 1. So we've had some experience in that. Again, the funding is state, 95% state and 5% local. You can't beat that. That's a really good ratio there. Seldom do you see grants that, that high percentage from the state or federal government. The maximum grant amount is $1 million. It'd be $950 and $50. To get to the point, City of Kingsport is applying for funds to construct a sidewalk in the Colonial Heights area on Fort Henry Drive on State Route 36. It's only on one side. I believe we'd call it the east side, north side, east side, actually east side. Colonial Heights Road to Lake Crest Drive. To give you an idea, that's basically from Ingalls and the railroad track back to the gas station there on Lebanon and Colonial Heights. So that's the section on the north side that will be applied for. The expected cost and the grant request is around $750,000. We haven't finalized the budget on that yet, which is about $712 state, $37,000 some change local. Expected cost, this will include a fund for preliminary engineering and right-of-way. So that's another really good bonus, is you got a grant program that covers PE and right-of-way, which is great. The application is submitted this fall. They haven't set a deadline for that yet, and I'll tell you why here in a second. They do want a resolution of support or letter of support from the MTPO Executive Board. So that's why we brought this to you today, that you need to approve support or provide support for this grant application in this project through a resolution that Leslie's put together. We did submit a notice of intent to apply back a week or so ago, due July 31. And of course, this just allows TDOT to look over the application, kind of the scope of work, the general idea behind the application, make sure it meets the eligibility and it's on the state route and so forth. So notice of intent is in. Then they'll notify those who are eligible, and we'll submit the full application again sometime this fall. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen, City of Kingsport Board of Mayor and Aldermen also have to address this and have to approve the application as well, and that will be done in the next few weeks. Any questions? Any concern?
I don't have a question, but I will just throw my 2 cents in is, I think there was some concern, I know from one member of the BMA about the pushback they got on the sidewalks on Stone Drive, about how that would affect the sidewalks in Colonial Heights. And it could not be more different. There has been nothing but positive response to the
Exactly.
sidewalks going into Colonial Heights. I know the mayor specifically walked up and down and spoke to every business on each side of the street, and they were like, yeah, we don't care if you take some of our parking. We need those sidewalks. So just unanimous support out in Colonial Heights. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, and we actually had done a survey, or actually had invited the entire business community out there to a meeting, and we did not get any opposition at all. Everybody seemed to be in favor of it, and it's encouraging support from the business community.
And I believe there is going to be, probably within the next week or 2, maybe 3, a Wednesday story that addresses this. So if, watch for that, or if you have any feedback either way, then, let the BMA know your feelings, if you're for or against. I mean, either way that you feel about it. So at least they will have some feedback.
Let's hope it's not a letter to the editor, because those always hate sidewalks. Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Bill? Or anybody on this project? Then I will open the floor up for a motion.
This is Chase Milner. I'll make a motion to approve this multimodal application.
This is Blake. I second that.
All right, we got a first and a second. Is there any other discussion on the multimodal grant? All right, seeing none, we'll ask Leslie to call the roll, please.
Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner. Chase, I didn't hear you.
Yes, that's affirmative. Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer. Rhonda.
Aye.
Amber Torbett
Aye.
and Jennifer Williams.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, item number 5 on our agenda today is the 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan Amendment, and Leslie has this presentation.
Okay, so at the last meeting, we had received an amendment to our TIP from TDOT, and we went ahead and processed that amendment. It was approved for the State Route 36 project from Interstate 81 to State Route 75. When processing this TIP amendment, it was discovered a long-range plan amendment may also be required for this project, and I did mention this at the last meeting when we were going through the TIP amendment. But we did not have enough time. Long-range plan amendments require 30-day public review, and comment period. So since we didn't have enough time to do it at the last meeting, we are doing it this time. We did have the 30-day public review. The information was posted and sent out on July 6th. And of course, they had it through August 4th to submit comments, and then also earlier, during this meeting, during the public comment section on agenda items. So the big changes, the biggest thing was the State Route 36. Let's see, that's Rock Springs Road. On this page, you'll see we changed the description to widen existing 2-lane road to 5 lanes with sidewalks on both sides, and changed the YOE cost where it did just say it was a 4-lane and the YOE cost was $44 million. So that was the biggest thing that was changed. And one of the reasons for the drastic change in cost is because the original figures were from 2017 at the inception of the Improve Act. This amended cost is from a June 2019 technical report, so it would be more accurate than the estimate from 2017. And since we had to do this amendment, there's also been progress on the Rock Springs Road project, so I went ahead and made these changes to that project, and these are pretty minor, but I added the PIN number, changed the description to reconstruct existing 2-lane roadway to include a center turn at select locations and intersections, changed the phase it's in, and then also the funding, because it did have City of Kingsport and MPO funds, but it's just MPO. There's no local funds in this project. So typically, I've had discussions with Federal Highway about long-range plan amendments, because this is the first one I've had to do since I've been in the MPO. Typically, the TIP follows the long-range plan. So we would have done these at the same time, or the long-range plan would have been amended before the TIP. But because of time constraints, the TIP amendment was done at the previous meeting, as I mentioned, and the TIP does have to be consistent with the long-range plan. So that's the need to do this amendment to our long-range plan, is to make the two documents consistent. So if there's any other questions, I will be happy to answer those.
All right, if nobody has any questions for Leslie, we'll open it up for a motion.
This is Rhonda. I'd like to make a motion to pass or approve.
Chase, I'll second that motion to approve the long-range transportation plan amendment.
Now, Leslie, in 2039, you'll just come back and update us, right? Let us know everything's working good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Leslie, is there any more discussion on this? All right, seeing none, we'll have Leslie call the roll.
Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Aye.
Amber Torbett,
Aye.
Jennifer Williams,
Aye.
Is that everybody?
Yep.
All right, passes unanimously. Next, we've got item number 6 on today's agenda, the fiscal year 20 to 23 TIP amendment for Virginia. And Leslie also has this presentation.
We received this TIP amendment from VDOT. They've asked us to add funds for fiscal year 20 to the following project groupings, which is the maintenance grouping for preventive maintenance and system preservation, and also another maintenance grouping for preventive maintenance for bridges. Of course, amendments to the TIP require executive board action, and these showing on the screen are the changes. So this is the old page, and this is the new page. They've added 27 million NHPP funds to fiscal year 20, and then the next group, they added an additional 6.7 million NHPP funds to fiscal year 20 to this group. So VDOT does most of their stuff in project groupings instead of individual projects. So this is increasing those funds as requested by VDOT.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jimmy. I'd like to make a motion to approve the TIP amendment as presented.
All right.
This is Blake. I'll second that.
Do we have any further discussion on Leslie's presentation there? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Aye.
Amber Torbett,
Aye.
and Jennifer Williams.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, we got item number 7 on the agenda, one that I am very excited about. the fiscal year 20 and 23 tip amendment for Kingsport, and Leslie has this presentation.
Okay, so I assume people are familiar with the Brickyard Park development. Of course, right now there's, ball fields, and the Miracle Field was just opened over there. Looking at additional development in that area. So, of course, to get from downtown to that area, you've got the railroad crossing right there at Cherokee Street at the Centennial Park. So this would be to add a pedestrian bridge on the screen in the red box. The middle right there, the little circle, is Centennial Park. The green would be a pedestrian bridge. The city is applying for a transportation alternatives grant for this project, and that would be for the construction phase. But to get this project started, the city has asked to add this project to our TIP, and you see the environmental and design and right-of-way would be our STBG funds, so that'd be 20% local and 80% of the MPO federal funds. And then right now, we just have the construction programmed in local funds only. If we get that TAP grant, then we would change the funding source at that time to reflect the TAP grant instead of local funds. And so this is the documentation just to add this new project to our TIP with this funding.
Let me add that this would be most likely the only application that the city will submit this fall for TAP money.
For TAP.
Now, Leslie, is this one? I know when we were applying for another grant for the bridge, I think it was another one. All these TAP tips and GRCs and LPAs and everything else, I get confused. But is this the grant where you apply and you're not guaranteed on your first chance, or?
Well, none of them you're really guaranteed on your first chance. These are competitive. We did apply for this one last year, so we did not receive it. So we're recycling, submitting this project again.
Okay. And I know that's the case with all of them. As it was being explained to me, you just there's some that I guess that just first look, it's rare that any of them ever get approved. So I was wondering if this is so it's been through multiple times.
Yeah, this will be the second time for this one.
It's very, very competitive program.
And I'll also add on Leslie's little chart there, we're looking at residential in the yellow, and in the purple is a festival grounds type area, and a bicycle pump track, and all kinds in the Miracle Fields in red. So this bridge is going to be really important because it's going to connect downtown to what essentially will be a new neighborhood and there'll be walking trails. I mean, it's going to be a really vital piece of Kingsport for the future. So with that, I'll open it up to a motion.
I'll make that motion. Amber Torbett.
Chase will second that motion for TIP amendment.
Is there any other discussion? All right, Leslie, if you'll call the roll, please.
Chairman James Phillips.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins.
Aye.
Blake Ayler.
Aye.
Chase Milner.
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer.
Aye.
Amber Torbett.
Aye.
And Jennifer Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes. We will move on to item 8 now, which is an amendment to the bylaws. And Leslie has this presentation as well.
Okay, so at the last meeting, these were presented because our current bylaws state to update your bylaws, it has to be presented at one meeting and then approved at the next. So these were presented at the last meeting. I asked that everybody review those and let me know any feedback. I have not received anything since then. I know the biggest thing in the executive board was, it used to say that Hawkins County, Churchill, and Mount Carmel, one representative was appointed for a 4-year term, but that has not been the case. It's just been, one of them, whoever shows up basically is the voting member representing those jurisdictions. If we have more than one voting member show up, then they would just decide, who's going to be the voting member for that meeting. The other major thing was the paragraph about allowing virtual electronic telephonic meetings. As I mentioned at the last meeting, I did not specify there has to be, certain criteria, states of emergencies, national emergencies, anything like that, because I didn't want to hem us in. I wanted to give us, as long as the states allow it through their Open Meetings Act, the opportunity to be able to meet virtually. The Open Meetings Acts are not addressed in the bylaws. They weren't in the old bylaws either, but it is mentioned in our PPP. So our PPP will be modified to match our bylaws when the bylaws are updated. So if there's any questions, and this is for the TCC and the executive board, they both say the exact same thing about virtual meetings. And other than those changes, basically just cleared up a few things, like there were some job titles that have changed that were mentioned in the bylaws because they hadn't been updated for several years. So I just cleaned them up a little bit with some other minor items.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leslie. This is Jimmy. The only one, I guess two things. The easiest one to address is under the Technical Coordinating Committee for the voting members representing Lenawisco. It does say regional planner. I would ask that still be changed to executive director, just like the big board, and then have the proxy set up that we've historically had, please. And we do that because we don't always have a regional planner. We don't right now.
Okay.
And then the other one is the virtual meeting piece. I hate to throw him under the bus, but Blake knows a lot more about it than I do. But I think at least from the Virginia side of it, it's such a moving target that how the process works over here is obviously going to be different from over there.
Thanks, Jimmy. I do have, this is Blake, I do have a little bit of reservation, and the only reason being is this same conversation is taking place at the Bristol MPO, and upon speaking with Rex Montgomery, the MPO coordinator, and Daniel Kaiser, their city attorney, we had determined at that time that we would want to make these changes. However, there's flux right now in Virginia as far as how the state law may end up. I will say, outside of the governor's executive order, when it ends, we cannot have virtual meetings, period. In Tennessee, the flip side to that is when the executive order ends in Tennessee state law does allow virtual meetings. However, there's a huge caveat that certainly concerned Bristol's attorney, was that you still have to have a physical quorum at the meeting location. So once you have that established, the other members can participate virtually. So my thought is, I do support it, and I wish we could have virtual meetings. Me and Leslie, talked. It makes it so much easier for individuals from Richmond and Nashville to join us on these meetings, and Pam and others that do not have to drive a long distance. It is a fantastic thing to have. It's just, I'm a little concerned that once the executive orders end, and I do not have a great feeling that either state is going to permanently allow at this time virtual meetings, I feel like item 5, is something that's going to be placed in here that won't be allowed to be used. But I do understand having it inside of your bylaws in case if you ever can use it. But I think a sentence in there or some sort of explanation, because I think it's just, it's just known now as you read it that you would follow the state law. But I feel like it may behoove us to point that out, that both state laws will be followed in regards to virtual meetings.
I guess my concern with that is if Tennessee's allowing them and Virginia is not, then, and we have business that needs to be done, if I put in there as allowed by both state laws, that would keep us from doing Tennessee business, which I know it's just MPO business, but it would keep us from handling Tennessee items because Virginia can't attend or can't, doesn't allow virtual meetings. That's my concern with saying that we'd have to follow the laws of both states.
Well, I think all it would do is it would remove the voting capabilities of myself and Jimmy, of which you would still have a quorum with the remaining members. So therefore, Tennessee business could still continue. However, Virginia business could not. And my main concern is, I don't know, and I've stated this to both MPOs, that their attorneys should follow up more so with VAMPO and other organizations. That's the Virginia Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, to find out what is the path forward and how best would it be to construct this in order for it to work. And I know reaching out to Northern Virginia is something I've mentioned as well, as they are a bi-state MPO. And the controlling entity is not Virginia there as well. So it just, to me, and I guess in my opinion, fleshing out a little bit more may be needed. Putting this in here certainly doesn't break any laws or do anything, but right now it's something placed in that as soon as the pandemic's over, we cannot meet virtually due to both state laws.
So you're saying that if you vote on a Virginia item, you got to be there in person?
When the executive order is over, that is correct. And in Tennessee, that is the same. You have to have a physical quorum at the meeting location prior to that virtual portion being allowed to kick in, and that's how Tennessee state law is written. And I do not say that as being an avid Tennessee state law reader. I do have a lot of experience with Tennessee state law in my previous career, but that comes as an official response from Tennessee, Bristol, Tennessee's attorney.
This is Pam from FHWA. Clearly an issue, and we have several bi-states, and in fact, we even have one tri-state MPO in Tennessee. And so this did come up, I think, last month where we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And Blake, I appreciate your comments. And maybe we need to take this back and kind of let the lawyers look at it. Not only, let's have our Tennessee state DOT, TDOT lawyers look at it with the VDOT lawyers, because you're absolutely right. This is a problem that Virginia is going to face in all your bi-states. So if we have Virginia's position, then maybe we can figure out how that impacts Tennessee, and then if there's any federal requirements that come on board. Because I was actually texting Sean about having, splitting business, Virginia business and Tennessee business done separately. Do we have an opinion about that? And I don't think we do yet. We will, but not right this second. So if we can get Virginia's position, that'll help us understand the impact on Tennessee, and then if there's any impact from us or what we can do to help.
Michael, will you go ahead and promote Richard to panelist?
Yes, ma'am.
While he's promoting, Leslie, I will, Pam, thank you. I will do my best. Unfortunately, it's going to be difficult because the Attorney General's office in Virginia has requested that the district planners and VDOT specifically do not provide any guidance on this topic, unfortunately.
Well, and I appreciate, Blake, this is literally, this is bigger than you and bigger than us, in that this is going to be an impact to Virginia statewide. And so, I don't know if you have any North Carolina bi-states, but the DC one, I used to work up in that area. I'm familiar with it. So, this is definitely something that y'all are going to have to kind of help us understand what your position is, and then the rest of us are going to have to react to it. So totally understand that this is not within your specific control, but all y'all are going to be looking for an answer.
Richard is with Federal Highway Virginia. Have you all had any discussion, or do you have any further insight on this, Richard? You're muted right now.
No, not at the moment.
So we don't have to vote on these today. We can push it. Our next meeting will probably be November unless something comes up.
I can reach out to my counterpart in Virginia. Richard, I don't think we've had a chance to meet, but I can reach out and see maybe where y'all are and you know, that we're providing a consistent interpretation for you. We can get Sean and Richard and me and Thomas together and see what we can come up with. Maybe nothing, but we can certainly have a conversation.
And really the intent of this item was to have enabling verbiage in there so that hopefully, like you said, Pam, Tennessee and Virginia can continue to talk. And so I don't think there's any reason to hold up on this action item. It's, but it may in the future need further definition as the two states come to an agreement on how we should do business going forward.
Seems like the purpose behind it in the future would be for travel restrictions, not necessarily for the pandemic, but it might work if you had travel restrictions. In other words, to be certain criteria you have to meet in order to apply that rule.
Oh, we could have a tornado up here or something, or, you know, like Nashville had the floods and tornadoes. And so it may not be a state or national emergency. That's why I didn't want to be very specific in the criteria. Just, you know, and it may be something, again, like when this pandemic started, Tennessee allowed virtual meetings, but Virginia did not. So we could have had a meeting, had it been in our bylaws, we could have had a meeting, you know, under Tennessee allowing the virtual meetings, but maybe without our Virginia members, if we had business that had to, you know, be dealt with like right then. So.
Mr. Chairman, board members, staff, this is Jimmy. I guess at the end of the day, I think it's just an issue, and the wordage might be perfect. I think further information and guidance needs to be given from, I guess, the proverbial powers that be. That's my stance.
I just find it strange that we're looking for guidance from at the state level. I mean, they're usually so good. The governor's office has been through this. Both of them been a little struggle. It's just, but in all honesty, it's just so much is changing. I think constantly that it's hard to, you know, school systems, everything. It's impossible to keep up right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a consistently moving target that we may end up looking at having to update bylaws every other meeting. So I'm kind of one of those do it first, the first time. So
it's here to stay. I believe it's here to stay.
Let me ask, has anybody in Virginia, I know Tennessee's expires in August 29th unless they extend it. Virginia's, has your I guess your
state of emergency
to have these meetings, when does it expire?
That's a great question. From what I can interpret and read, and this is not official guidance in any way, it appears to me the governor has removed the date restriction on his executive order in regards to the portion that dealt with virtual public meetings and some other things. So it appears to me there isn't a date on it now of when it ends. So when the executive order is no longer valid, it would then therefore end.
I guess that's one thing that would only be, one of the things that would be my concern is if we don't vote on this or anything, and then we get to our November meeting and one state has a separate set of rules as the other state, what do we do?
Well,
I think even if this is in here, you're still going to find yourself in that precarious situation because, as I said before, even if let's say Virginia allows virtual meetings and Tennessee does not, you're not going to have a quorum to do any business because Virginia doesn't make your quorum up on the virtual portion. So, you know, it's a tough situation. There's no doubt about it. But I think in the end, we need to think about when the executive orders are over, how does this apply? And right now, and unless anyone from TDOT or the administration in Tennessee has heard any differently, has there been conversations about virtual public meetings becoming something outright? Because from my sources, that is nowhere even on the table.
I've heard a little bit in Tennessee, but it's just been floated out there as people talking. I don't know that it's anything hard line or happening for sure.
And Virginia's mentioned it. I will say they've talked about it, but due to the governor's executive order, it's supposedly kind of blew in the wind, and it appears to me no one's going to mention it again. But if they do, that's great. And then obviously we don't have it in our bylaws. So I do understand the catch on a lot of this, but it even comes down to fleshing out how does the votes occur. So if you allow this in here, and Tennessee allows virtual public meetings, and you have a quorum, can Virginia associates attend that meeting, i.e. me and Jimmy, and vote on those items, even though Virginia state law says a virtual public meeting is not seen as being something that is acceptable? And I don't think I've had that answer from anyone yet.
Chairman, may I have a moment?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm a little late into this discussion, but to my understanding, the National Capital Regional Transportation Planning Board has very similar language in their bylaws. So if that could be explained or explored, appreciate it. They're a bi-state MPO.
Correct, and that was the board that I was speaking about earlier that conversations needed to take place with.
Is their bylaws not adopted?
I can't answer that, as I work for the Bristol District, Preston. Unfortunately, I can't answer that.
Okay, thank you.
So what's the verdict? Vote or delay?
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is Jimmy. I'd like to make a motion to table this agenda item for the next meeting and formally ask staff and all of us who's dealing with it just to have some further discussions and get some more information.
Before I get a second, let me ask a question. Is there the ability, this is showing my newness maybe, if something changes, do we have the ability to call emergency meeting and vote on this or something like that, if make a change if we need to have something done?
We do. I mean, we can call a meeting at any time. It's
Okay.
just, would we know that we need to call a meeting before it's too late,
Well, and all I'm wondering is if we do get some guidance before November and we see that, hey, we need to pass this, that, maybe we need to call an emergency meeting to make sure everything's okay in November or something. But all right, I'll just see. Do we have a second?
Chase Milner will second that motion.
All right, any further discussion on it? Leslie, call the roll.
Okay, and remember you're voting to table this until the next meeting. Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Rhonda Sawyer,
Abstain.
Amber Torbett. Amber? Is she here?
Leslie, is this the second reading on this?
Well, there wasn't a first reading. We had to present it at one meeting, but they had to be delayed till the next meeting to actual vote, so there wasn't a vote on it before.
Yeah.
Jennifer Williams?
Aye.
I don't know what happened to Amber. But we've got five yes.
She's showing up that she's there but muted. Amber, are you there?
We have 5 votes to table it, so that's enough. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing in case Gresham Smith needs to share for their presentation.
So next we've got agenda item number 9, which is the Kingsport Regional Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan update. And Gresham Smith, let's see, who did we say is doing it?
We got Drew Gaskins, Patrick Fiveash, and John Story. Michael will be promoting them to panelist.
Okay, perfect. So you guys go ahead with your presentation.
I believe y'all should all be
Muted.
Drew, you are in there twice, so let me know if I've promoted the wrong one of you, or if I need to do both.
Hey, Michael, this is Amber. Can I interrupt? Hey, guys, I apologize. I didn't know it would take this long. I have to take my son to football practice. I'm truly sorry. I cannot stay on the call.
That was the last voting item anyway, so.
Okay.
So did you vote to table that?
Oh, the last, I mean, I listened to most of the discussion. I was just gathering up stuff, so I apologize I didn't vote.
Okay, so I've
heard the updates from VDOT, TDOT, and you know, Federal Highway at MTPO with Bristol this morning. So again, I'm sorry, I've got to skedaddle.
That you were okay with tabling the bylaws discussion?
Sure. That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gresham.
Drew and Patrick. Looks like you're all muted. Can you unmute yourselves?
There we go. Oops.
And if you have a presentation, whoever should be able to share their screen.
Are we giving the presentation?
Like Drew is still muted.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. And I am trying to get my screen shared here, and we'll get started. All right, and here we go. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you all. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. 1 second.
I'll just remind even the panelists to mute yourself if you're not talking, and that may help him.
Okay, still getting a little feedback, but I will continue and just turn down the volume on my headset. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for having us join you today. Wanted to give a quick update on where we are with the Kingsport MTO Bicycle Pedestrian Plan. We do have a couple of other team members on the line, and I just wanted to recognize them before I continue. John Story from Gresham Smith is on the line. We also have Patrick Fiveash from Gresham Smith as well, and I believe we have a couple of people from IBI Consulting out of Knoxville who will also be assisting us in this effort. So Bill Bruce, Patrick Osborne, and Mary Catherine Kennard, and just wanted to recognize them before I get started. But anyway, I'll go ahead and plow ahead here. I do have a couple of areas I'd like to stop as we go for discussion points, things that I'd like to get your feedback on. But I'll pause when we get there. Just quickly today, what I wanted to go over was welcome and introductions, which we just did. Also wanted to briefly outline our project understanding, go over the plan, vision, goals, and objectives, and where we are in that process right now. Have a brief discussion of the opportunities and challenges that we'll be looking at in part one of the study, and then just briefly touch on next steps. So first of all, the project understanding, just to zoom out to the 30,000 foot level, this is really a statement that, really our starting point for the plan. There's been a lot of great transportation planning, and including some of the things that we've been talking about today that have been going on in the Kingsport region for some time. We want to keep building on that and really hope that the bicycle pedestrian plan guides the development of quality bicycle pedestrian improvements over the next 20 years or so. And I know that the LRTP process recently kicked off, and we look forward to some of these findings being incorporated into that effort. We always want to make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize in terms of having a complete plan that's actionable. And as part of that, we really view the schedule as consisting of three parts. So the first one, which is the one that we're in right now, is a look at the opportunities and challenges facing the region. Based on the findings that we have in those or in that part, we move on to drafting recommendations, and those are, in addition to facility recommendations, also looking at plan, policy, and non-infrastructure recommendations that can be used to support those facilities, and then a final plan which will include a discussion of project priorities and funding as well. And this is what that looks like on our schedule. So we're, as you can see, we recently got started late last month, a couple of weeks ago, with an internal kickoff meeting. So we're underway with part one right now. We are tentatively looking at sometime in the fall to take some of our preliminary findings to the public and start engaging the public intentionally and getting some feedback from them. Towards the end of the year and early next year, that's when we would move into part two with drafting those recommendations, and then ultimately wrapping up the project sometime late winter, early spring next year. A couple of things I do want to point out too. At the very top of the schedule, you can see that the project management and public and stakeholder engagement are really activities that are going to be going throughout. So we do plan on having regular updates with Bill and his team, as well as meetings with our project advisory committee, which we held one concurrently with our kickoff meeting, and I thought we had a really good, productive discussion. So I'm looking forward to working with that group as we move forward. In terms of vision, goals, and objectives, the MTPO did have about 10 years ago-ish the last plan update. I think it was 2012. And there were vision, goals, and objectives spelled out in that plan. So really, as a starting point, we just looked at what the region had emphasized in that effort. And so this is the vision statement from the 2012 plan. The emphasis is on a comprehensive network that improves safety, enhances mobility, and generally promotes a higher quality of life, throughout the entire MTPO region, including Tennessee and Virginia. And to that end, these are the goals that were laid out. So livability, sustainability, and prosperity. In the parentheses there are the number of objectives that were associated with each of those. And really what we wanted to do early in the process is just ask what the status of each goal is. Do you all feel that progress has been made towards these goals? Do they need to be updated? Are there new ones that need to be considered? And should performance measures be considered? I will point out that in the very bottom in red, you see connectivity. That was an outcome of our project advisory committee meeting, and that was suggested to be an additional goal, focusing not only on connectivity among the various municipalities within the MTPO region, but also just more basically just making sure that we're connecting people from where they are to where they want to go, and connecting those key definitions. So that's one that we're going to be fleshing out some objectives on. But I wanted to pause, and I'm going to turn my volume back up so I can hear you all. I wanted to ask you all if there are additional goals, objectives, or any revisions that you think would be beneficial to make to either the vision statement or the project goals and objectives. Hearing none. Again, if you do have some additional thoughts for us at any time, please reach out to Bill or me directly if there are some things, any thoughts that you have on the vision goals and objectives. But again, we will be submitting here in the next couple of weeks a revised vision statement and some updated goals and objectives for the plan to Bill and his team for review and discussion. So again, we can engage on that later if there are any additional thoughts that you all have. So I'll move on into the really part one, which is that identification of opportunities and challenges. And here I just wanted to provide a preview of some of the technical work that we're going to be doing, and how we plan on using those findings to inform the draft network plan. Just to back up quickly, in terms of our general approach, we really feel that the keys to a successful regional bike ped plan center on three kind of primary questions. Where do you want to go? Or taking a longer view, what's the region's vision for walking and bicycling? So obviously we've talked about that in terms of the vision statement, and making sure that we're adding that connectivity component in there as a point of emphasis. How do you want to get there? That deals with facility types, plans and policies that are supportive. Really, how can we best apply state of the practice, techniques within the community? And then where do you want to begin? What are the most effective implementation strategies? And you can kind of see the various milestones under each of these parts that really correspond to each of these questions. But again, today we're focused primarily on part one, which is, again, the looking at vision goals and objectives and existing conditions, and really preparing that discussion for the first public workshop. So in terms of where do you want to go, and how do we, what connections do we need to make? There's really three primary analytical tools that we're going to be using. And I'll go over each of these quickly. The first is level of traffic stress. The second is bike ped demand. And the third is an analysis of health and equity issues in the community. So level of traffic stress is a metric that we use. And really it's a way to quantify how comfortable a roadway segment's going to be for a cyclist. It will score a roadway segment from 1, which is suitable for possibly a 10-year-old to use, all the way up to 4, which we would call only suitable for what we call the strong and fearless riders. As you can see, we have some inputs that we use to analyze that. And really, it's just roadway characteristics in terms of geometry, traffic, posted speeds, as well as the presence or absence of facilities. And so this will help us identify segments where it may be a little bit more comfortable for people to walk currently, as well as some that people likely avoid generally. Supporting that, we're also going to take a look at demand, bicycle pedestrian demand within the region. And the way I like to describe this is just looking at where people would walk and bike if there were the facilities there to support that mobility. So it doesn't really take into account whether or not there are facilities. It really just takes into account where people might want to go. I've got an example of some of the inputs that we've used in the past here on the screen. These are not the ones that we're going to be using necessarily for Kingsport. Those will be based, they may be similar, but they'll be based on the goals and objectives that we develop before we undertake this technical work. But again, this in concert with the LTS will really give us a nice picture, sort of objective analytically of where people want to go and what the barriers are in terms of facilities that get them there. And then finally, we wanted to take a look at health and equity within the region. This ensures, and again, we have a table here showing what some of those socio-demographic metrics are that we use. This is purely an example. But again, the reason we look at this is not only to make sure that we are equitably distributing facility recommendations throughout the region, but also to ensure that we're including facility recommendations in areas where people may really benefit from them from a physical and mental health standpoint. So we try to take a look at some health indicators in addition to more traditional equity measures like poverty, median household income, race and ethnicity. And it really acts as not only a gut check to ensure that we're equitably distributing those recommendations, but it also helps us identify recommendations that may be more competitive for certain types of health-related grant funding.
Drew, you there? Hey, Drew?
So moving on in terms of how do you want to get there, again, we're going to be considering a range of facility types, and here is just a simple visual preference survey that shows what some of those are, everything from sidewalks, side paths, all manner of bike lanes, as well as some urban design components. We will be certainly considering supportive infrastructure, particularly as it relates to transit stops, bike parking, things like that, in that examination of programs and policies. And certainly this is a major question that's going to be asked in the first round of public outreach. And then finally, where do you want to begin in terms of effective implementation strategies? We certainly want to consider prioritization. So we will be based on the findings from part one and some of the public feedback we get, as well as working with you all. Later on in the project, we will be looking at a prioritization framework that can be used to rank projects, on a variety of different points of emphasis. In the top right, you can sort of see an example of what some of those are, everything from safety to demand, equity, and cost. And we'll also take a look at the existing design guidelines within the region and make sure that those are consistent with national standards. So before I move on to next steps, I'll pause again to see if anybody has any questions in terms of the work that we're looking at in part one and really throughout the project that was discussed here.
Drew, this is Bill. Can you hear me?
I can.
When you talked about the demand analysis, that is for current, or are you going to do any with our help projections on demand? In other words, the land use changes. We see a lot of apartment complexes going up in Kingsport, a lot, which I think generates bicycle traffic and pedestrian.
Absolutely, Bill. And
so it's not just current, it's future.
Right. Well, many times we've approached it from the existing level, but we can absolutely take a look at future demand too, and really compare the two. And that may be a good strategic addition to the implementation. So yes, I mean, a combination of future land use and some of the population employment projections, we can absolutely do a future look at demand as well.
Great.
Hey, Drew, I think you can leave your speakers on now. I think I fixed the problem.
Okay.
Hey, Drew, this is Sean with FHWA. I know TDOT data visualization has put together a multimodal suitability index, I think they call it, that kind of gets to a lot of, are you guys coordinating or at least reviewing that approach while you guys are considering the approach for Kingsport here?
Sean, we've reviewed that with past projects, and again, I should probably clarify that the analytical techniques that we looked at here are really just they're not exclusive. There are some other things that we may look at, but yes, we're familiar with that, and we'll make sure to take a look at that and coordinate our work for consistency with TDOT practice.
Okay, very cool. Thank you.
And thanks, Sean. Thanks for that. All right, hearing no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and move on just for a quick discussion of next steps. These are really our immediate next steps in terms of part one of the study. We are wrapping up our data inventory. I do want to thank those of you, I'm not sure if it's been any of you specifically, but certainly some of your representatives or colleagues who have helped us out with that to date. We're also wrapping up a review of the existing plans and policies throughout the region, again, with an emphasis on ensuring that we're consistent with the goals and recommendations from those. And we'll also be heading up to Kingsport, which I'm excited about because I haven't gotten out of the house a lot lately, to come up for a field review and really kind of gut check some of our desktop findings with what's out there in the field. In terms of the vision goals and objectives, we will be submitting the draft vision statement and the updated goals and objectives here in the next couple of weeks. And at that point, move into defining those opportunities and challenges by way of some of the analysis that I discussed. And then moving into the public workshop, the first public workshop, which will really be the complementary component to our desktop analysis, is bringing it to the public and stakeholders and having them tell us what the issues are. And to that end, I did want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the first public workshop. And there was, a pretty spirited discussion earlier regarding the bylaws in terms of some of the challenges that we're facing at the moment. It seems to me that here in the next couple of months, having an in-person public meeting with an indeterminate number of people would probably be challenging, especially given the executive orders that are out and the likelihood that they may or may not be extended. So we're working with Bill and his team, and again, we'll have some specifics on this in the next week or two with rounding out a virtual workshop. That could be something that's done in real time with interactive components, or something that's done more sort of on demand. But we'll definitely, in addition to that, regardless of what that format is, we'll absolutely be deploying some online tools, interactive mapping, and online survey. And possibly, and certainly keep in mind as we continue on through the project, and certainly in the second round of public outreach, whether, when, and how we can return to doing some in-person workshops. So I wanted to also quickly pause before I wrap up here and just ask you all if a virtual workshop is something that you all are comfortable with, and if there are any caveats or things that we should consider from your standpoint as we move forward with planning that first round of outreach.
Makes sense at this time, Drew.
Okay.
And Drew, I would say from Federal Highway's perspective, I would encourage you to include us as you guys are doing that, and then also try to document the effort as best you can, and feel free to share that with us, because we are trying to keep tabs of the different virtual public involvement efforts that are going on, not just in response to the pandemic, but as a general kind of innovative practice. We do have resources available if you guys need them for any assistance or any insight onto different strategies. So happy to help out in that regard as well.
All right, thank you, Sean.
How many times can you conduct a virtual workshop? In other words, it seems like it would be pretty easy to do more than one.
Yeah, I would think so, Bill. I mean, really, once you have the infrastructure in place to do it, it's really just a matter of ensuring that we have, the staff capacity for whenever that live, that live period is.
Right. Okay.
No, but it's also something that could possibly be recorded and posted with the ability to comment on a website as well.
That's what I was kind of thinking, John.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I mean, any type of virtual outreach platform that we would use, all of them that I'm aware of have ready-made recording capabilities. All right. Well, thank you for the guidance and some of the suggestions there. At that point, I did just want to go ahead and wrap up and just say that we're very grateful to have been chosen by you all to conduct this work, and we're really looking forward to getting getting underway. It is a strange time to be starting a project, but we're thrilled to be working on this one and really look forward to working with all of you over the next several months.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for that presentation. Next, we've got project updates. If anybody wants to run down a list of any projects they'd like to update us on.
I have promoted Mike Russell for him to give his updates from TDOT.
Did you promote Brian Holt as well?
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, Mike, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. This is Mike Russell with TDOT. I have a few updates. Thank you for having me today. The first one I'll hit is Memorial, the first section from East Center Street to east of Cooks Valley. We're still obviously in the right-of-way acquisition phase. The project's got over nearly 270 tracks, 84 family relocations, 15 business relocations. Several offers have been made, but we're still anticipating the full process to take 36 to 42 months. So we're still ways out from that one. The next section of Memorial, east of Cooks Valley Road to I-81, the preliminary design has begun. The survey is completed, and I have down that the preliminary field review is going to be scheduled in early 2021 with a design public meeting to follow in fall of 2021. I'll move on to the next project, State Route 93, Washington County, from north of Davis Road to north of Fire Hall Road. That project was let back in March, and I believe Summers and Taylor was awarded that contract, and it went for approximately $7.2 million, I believe. The second section of the State Route 93 projects from Morgan Lane to south of Bailington Road. Shows that we're awaiting the construction funding on that one. And the same, let's see, okay, the third section south of Horse Creek to north of Derby Road. It's currently not funded in the 3-year plan. The right-of-way acquisition process has begun, and we're estimating that the right-of-way process will be complete in the spring of 2021. The State Route 36 from State Route 75 in Washington County to I-81 Sullivan County, which we've briefly discussed already. The preliminary engineering NEPA money has been authorized. So we do have a planning report, and we are moving forward with the environmental document. Survey has started, but it will need to continue throughout the process, updating stuff out there. Estimated completion date for the environmental document, we're looking at spring of 2022 right now. And once we get further along in that process and we receive some funding for the design, we'll be able to update the schedule. We'll be able to provide a better schedule at that time. Next, I have the Rock Springs Road project, and I guess Michael Thompson probably knows more about this project than I do, but I'm hearing that we are proceeding with no shoulders, and there'll be curb and gutter on both sides of the road. Preliminary design is starting over, and another preliminary field review must be held due to the typical that was last shown to the public. Last studied was a 5-lane section, and the shared use path will be on the other side of the creek, which will be in a separate local programs project. Michael, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Did I get that correct?
You perfect, Mike.
All righty. Next, we got I-81, the ITS expansion between I-26, exit 57, and the Virginia state line. We're currently preparing the environmental document for that project. We estimate a completion of sometime in the first quarter of 2021. Fort Robinson Drive Bridge. I apologize, there might have been some confusion from last time we discussed this. We are currently finalizing the right-of-way plans right now. We are moving forward with a span bridge. It would require less right-of-way to be acquired, and it would be easier to construct. So the decision was made in Nashville that would be the direction we would go. The next one I have is the intersection at Memorial, Fort Henry Drive, and Sherwood Road. And I'm showing that it is in the letting for August 14th. The plans are ready and they have been submitted. The next two projects I have are in Hawkins County, Independence Avenue and Hammond Avenue. Both of them are scheduled right now. The plans have been submitted for both of them, and they're both in the October 9th letting. And that's all I have. I tried to just keep it precise and keep things moving. Did anybody have any questions regarding any of them I could assist with? All righty, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Michael Thompson, did you have local updates? You're on mute.
Yes, I was going to say that I have promoted Brian Holt. If there's any VDOT projects that you'd like to update us on.
Hey, Leslie, it's Blake. If I can, let me give an update, and then I'll preface what Brian's going to explain. The Weber City 23 bridge over the North Fork, I know Bill has asked about this many times, as have others. It is officially complete. I don't know if anyone has seen that, so that's a good thing because it has took a very long time. With that being said, underneath the Virginia items, you'll see a third one, and I know Bill has asked about this one in the past, and that is US 23 Access Management. It says Weber City, Gate City, but it actually started at the Tennessee state line and ran up the corridor to Gate City. With that being said, that HSIP project, unfortunately, has been removed from funding. It was a funded project. The commissioner put pause on the HSIP projects in order to review the way those projects were funded and created new guidelines for which at that time removed that project. And I'm going to let Brian Holt, which is VDOT Bristol District's traffic engineer, explain that a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay. Can you unmute my phone, the 276 number?
Yes, try that now.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
That's better.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, like Blake was saying, in 2019, they VDOT had looked at the HSIP projects, and it was determined that moving forward for the next 6 years, so from 2020 to 2025, we would only focus on 8 systemic type projects. In doing that, in an effort to accelerate some of the funding for these projects, they looked at 78 spot improvements across the state that already received funding. And Route 23 was one of the 78 projects. So the determination was made to defer those projects and ultimately cancel them as long as if they didn't meet a certain criteria. And the criteria being the BC had to be greater than 15. Well, on this project, the BC was only 1.7. So this project ultimately lost its funding. One thing, though, the question was asked, does that mean no safety funds will be spent on 23? And, that's not the case. One of the 8 systemic projects is looking at unsignalized intersections and based on the PSI list. And this corridor from King Street down to the state line actually has a few intersections that are PSI locations. So there will be safety money spent on this corridor, but it will not be what was in the project originally. The original project looked at access management. For the unsignalized, we'll be looking at lower cost improvements like signs and marking changes. Could be some access management, but may not be what we focus on. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
I had a question. The cost benefit or benefit cost, is there a place to look that up, see how that was calculated?
I can go in our files and see if we still have that. It was from 2015. I'm sure we've got it somewhere. I didn't actually start at VDOT to 2016, so I can dig through our files and look for it.
I'm just interested.
Leslie, do you know if this project is located within our constrained long-range plan? I would anticipate that it is.
I would have to double check. I can do that and let you know.
If it is, I would anticipate we would remove it and place it within our vision long-range plan.
I'll check it.
And then we may need to look, and I know we just modified our tip. I feel like we do it every couple of months, but we may need to look at our tip and see if this project is located inside of it. If it is, we may remove it. But as Brian said, I do want to work with the MPO. As far as future projects, we need to look at Smart Scale and see what can be submitted, because the MPO has the ability to submit projects through the Smart Scale process on behalf of the localities within the MPO boundaries. So 23 certainly falls into that all the way up into Gate City. So we will work with you all to find a project next round that Scott County, Weber City, Gate City is comfortable with, and we would certainly be more than happy to assist you submitting that project into the Smart Scale process. I think that would be a good first path forward to try to find some of those improvements along that corridor.
All right. I'll check the long range plan and let you know for sure.
Okay.
As far as my updates, the West End Greenbelt continues to proceed through the NEPA process. The East End Greenbelt continues to be under construction. The rain showers we've been getting almost daily for the last couple of weeks has slowed us down, but we expect that to be complete in September. The Stone Drive sidewalks projects were bracketed. We had the pre-construction conference last week, and they plan to start in September. The Main Street rebuild project is in the right-of-way phase, and so we've been working through utilities and are awaiting we've hired the appraiser and the review appraiser. We're waiting on the appraisals to come in. Island Road is in the NEPA phase, as well as the resurfacing grouping. It has just been submitted. The NEPA document has been just submitted. And I believe, and there's not been any movement on the Crosstown Connector or the Sullivan Street Phase 3 at this time. Those projects got, the money got cannibalized by that to make sure that we could keep the projects that were ready for funding with the local shortfall due to the pandemic. So those have just been put on hold for right now.
Anybody else have any updates? And I think I caught this, that we kind of just did 10 and 11 together there, didn't we?
No, the state and federal partner update is separate. This was just the project updates.
Okay, I thought I heard TDOT go first. Sorry.
Well, that's just their projects.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Mike Russell, there is a question in the Q&A box. It says, you stated environmental study, this is on State Route 36. You stated environmental studies would be finished in spring 2022. When were they started? Because we, the property owners, were told in 2019 that they and the surveys were already underway. How long do these take?
It depends on the type of document that they're doing. I apologize, I don't know. I want to say it's probably a categorical exclusion, which can take a couple of years to move forward. The survey has started. I don't have an exact date of when the environmental document started, but they did have funding to start it last year. So I'd say they're pretty far along with it, but there's a lot of details that still obviously got to be worked out through a document like that.
Yeah, it seems like every phase is a long process. So,
well, this one has to be very, very thorough for the feds to approve.
Okay. If nothing else, we'll move on to state and federal partner updates.
Okay, I'm going to tell you who we've got. We'll start with Tennessee. We have Stacy Morrison with us. In addition, Rhonda's, of course, on our board. She's a voting member. And then Troy is on as an attendee. Stacy Morrison is with the Long Range Planning Office of Community Transportation. He's the planning manager. KB is the assistant director for Long Range Planning. And then Preston Elliott is the deputy commissioner, chief of environment and planning. So we'll do the updates from Tennessee right now. Do you all have anything? Preston, KB, Stacy, Rhonda, Troy?
Good afternoon. I think I'll start out and let the other staff members from TDOT, if they need to add anything additionally. Thank you, Leslie, for the introduction. I've been with TDOT now about 4 months. Actually, this is the second time that I've been with the department. About 16 years ago, I worked for TDOT. You know, East Tennessee is a place that I started out in transportation. I was actually on the Bristol MTPO meeting earlier this morning. And actually, my first stint in transportation in Tennessee was working with Rex Montgomery and David Metzger 20 something plus years ago. They're still there. But I did have an opportunity when I think it was a State of Franklin APA chapter, I guess is what it technically is called, and to meet a guy there named Bill Albright quite often. I have enjoyed listening in on this, your meeting, because a lot of the plans and documents I have actually been quite involved in over the years, whether it's your current 2040 transportation plan or your current regional bicycle and pedestrian plan. So when I just sitting here listening, it's quite enjoyable to see the fruits of all of those years and many staff members' efforts beginning to pay off. I'd like to thank you for continuing to have business transpire, undertaking this meeting virtually. It's very important that we continue to be able to conduct business so that transportation dollars that have time constraints and are limited and or competitive can remain available to your urban area. So taking the necessary actions, whether it's an endorsement of a letter of support, a resolution, tip amendment, plan amendment, those are all necessary functions so that at the end of the day, your community and your residents can see transportation improvements and can make their lives better as they move about. So really applaud your efforts and your staff members there that are making this happen through getting agenda items ready and having a platform like this. I will say, I got to remember, I was trying to remember the name of the room. Is it Bob Clear? Is that the room that you all often use? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed at one point in time on the amount of people that were on this Zoom would not fit in that room for sure. And I'd have to say that your participation level, from my recollection of working in Kingsport over the years, I don't quite remember you all having as many people participate in an MPO meeting. So great success. So kudos there. A couple of business items. Well, actually, before I do a business item in terms of information, I wanted to share something with you, and I'm hoping that at some point in time we can actually get some more graphic and type information in front of you. During this pandemic, the department has been tracking the traffic conditions along our interstate systems to see, essentially, what we're experiencing as a result of various executive orders and so forth, as well as stay-at-home orders. And obviously, this from seeing the activities in your community and how impactful it can be in terms of business and commerce. At one point in time, since March, in April, we actually saw in our urban areas across the state in Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, and Nashville, urban traffic on the interstates dropped to as low as 60% below normal traffic conditions in comparison to the previous year. And that's pretty staggering, to say the least. But on that note, we have seen some ebbs and flows, but we are working our way up to about a 10% below normal condition. And some of the interstate systems are a little bit different. I think I-75 is a little less impacted in the sense of a lot of people that travel during the summer from the north to the south. And I think traffic conditions, we've seen that specifically in the Knoxville and Chattanooga area. But those are conditions that we have been monitoring equally along the way of the safety impacts and what we see as well. I'm hoping at some point we'd be able to share this information more with you, but I just wanted to give you kind of a quick update there. The other area, and actually you had it as a business item, so I now know you're well aware. Got a couple of grant program opportunities, and one it sounds like you've already submitted, and that's the multimodal access grant. And I think Bill covered that relative to the letter of intent to submit or intent to apply. And then from there you'll move forward to submitting an application. And and that's the multimodal access grant, which pertains to sidewalk and bikeway improvements along state highways. The other one that I'd like to just mention is also an Improve Act funded program, and that is our public transit capital grant program. And I think in years past, you all have been quite successful in that. So I'm sure that your transit agency will apply, or I should say plural agencies will apply. So just wanted to let you know that one is the August 21st is the date for its due date for the letter of intent. So those are just a couple of updates. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm not quite sure if any other of TDOT staff have anything else to add, but thank you.
Thanks, Preston.
Thank you, Preston.
KB, Stacy, Troy, Rhonda.
Can you hear me, Leslie?
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware that Jason Farmer is on the line as well. He's our District 17 manager. So if there is anything construction or maintenance related that anyone has a question on, he's here and available to answer those questions for you as well. He didn't have anything specific he wanted to say, but he is available. And wanted to, of course, thank Mike for, or not Mike Thompson, but the other Mike, our Mike, for giving such in-depth updates. I really appreciate that. We do appreciate Michael Thompson too. It's okay, Mike. But all of the MPO staff on being able to make this this meeting possible as a virtual meeting. That way we can include all our federal partners and everyone, and through this thing, just the flexibility you all done. Really do appreciate everything that you guys are working on. So unless there's a specific question for Jason Farmer, that's all I have to say.
Okay, and I have promoted Katie. If we want to go on to her for the VTrans update.
Good idea.
Okay, so for Virginia, of course, we got Blake Ayler with VDOT. He's our voting member. Mike Mucha with the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation was on earlier, but he had another meeting. So we have Katie Schwing. She's the program analyst for the Virginia Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment, or OIP is easier to say.
Yes, and I want to make sure you all can hear me.
Yes.
Because I'm logged in on two different places. So thank you so much for giving me some time to provide an update to you all. And thanks for Blake for helping to coordinate me. So I just wanted to give an update on where we are with VTrans, which is the Virginia State Multimodal Long Range Transportation Plan. And some of you have heard these updates this morning at Bristol MPO, but I just wanted to let you all know that we're starting with the prioritization process for the midterm transportation needs. And, you know, Leslie and Bill, I'm sure you remember us going through the process last year to establish midterm needs. I provided an update to actually the board last year. And we had a workshop actually in Abingdon for this area as well. And Jimmy, we had a phone call when the needs were released to go over what they were. So we went through that whole process last year. The needs have been approved. And now we're starting the process to prioritize them. And the prioritization process is really sort of a next step to figure out which needs are the most pressing in terms of where we need to focus the state's planning dollars in terms of like more detailed project planning, planning studies, things like that. And we're currently going through the methodology with our internal partners, and now in late August, we're going to release information through our website, vtrans.org, that will include the draft methodology for prioritizing the needs, as well as draft outputs that you can actually see on a map, on an interactive web map. And you can provide comments, review everything that way, directly on the website. And you'll also be able to join a webinar that we'll set up to go over the information and have a Q&A session as well to find out more that way. I'm going to send all that information out to Blake, and I'll send it out to Bill and Leslie as well. You can disseminate that to the board if you'd like. But really, yeah, we just want you all to be aware that that's coming in late August, and we'd like to have your feedback if you can take some time and take a look at the draft methodology. Really, just to let you know, the midterm needs, I think for localities and regions, probably the primary use you would have is as a screening tool for being eligible for smart scale funding applications. The prioritization process won't get rid of that list. It's adding another layer to it that we can use for other purposes. So we're not removing any needs from that list. This is more to help focus state level dollars for studies. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or be on the lookout for further information in a few weeks. So thanks for those updates, and I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thanks, Katie. Does anybody have any questions for Katie? Are there any other Virginia updates?
No, Leslie, I think we're good for now. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to federal. We've got Sean and Pam with Federal Highway Tennessee and Richard with Federal Highway Virginia. So
thanks, Leslie. I'll go ahead and get started. Just wanted to mention that we recognize that Kingsport is in the early stages of their long-range plan updates, and we mentioned at the last meeting that we're prepared to assist. And one of the things that we have found to be helpful with other long-range plan updates that we've done is, and again, I'll volunteer TDOT on this, and thanks for not disagreeing with me, Preston. But we have found that working with y'all, if we could review some of your components in draft early, it's certainly your choice to do that, has been helpful in kind of maybe even speeding up the process a little bit, particularly at the end when we're doing our comprehensive review. We've already seen pieces and parts. So some of the elements that we have found to be beneficial to look at during draft is financial assumptions, model outputs, the prioritization processes, and some of the other pieces that y'all have underway. So when you get there, and if you're interested, please let us know, and we will do that. The FAST Act, which is the Federal Finance Authorization Act right now that we have ongoing, expires at September 30th of this year. At the moment, we're not sure what Congress is going to do. So either provide some kind of long-term funding, which is another FAST Act or something like that, or continuing resolutions. At the moment, we don't know what we're going to get, but as soon as we do, we will let you know. Wanted to mention the census. The census is ongoing right now, and the outputs of the census are critical to transportation planning and funding issues and decisions that y'all have to make. And I mentioned it at the Bristol this morning. Got a little bit more information because we were asked a question. I think Amber asked us a question. We weren't ready. According to the U.S. Census site, the Tennessee self-reporting or self-response rate is at about 63%. In comparison, in 2010, at the last census, according to a report by the Tennessean, which was actually the one that we could find, was Tennessee's final response rate was about 76% in October, right? So we're a few months out from the October date, and I believe the census is going to be ending a little bit early this year. The census is having issues compounded by COVID, because normally the census would have census takers going out and knocking on doors to try to fill in some of the blanks on the addresses that have not responded, but of course we're not able to do that. So at this point, we're just encouraging everyone to participate in the census and assist in that collection effort. And then finally, kind of looking at the end of the fiscal year. We're coming up on the end of our federal fiscal year. So asking each MPO to look at FY21, the federal fiscal year 21, UPWP, your planning work programs, to make sure that your funding and activities are accurate as we enter into the beginning of the new federal fiscal year, right? And if you need to make any changes, amendments, or updates, please get those underway. Sean, did I forget anything?
No, Pam, I think you got it. Yeah, thank you.
Or you say no, so it doesn't make me look bad. Thank you.
Richard, do you want to add anything?
Afternoon, everyone. No updates from Virginia side.
Troy is asking if there was any transit updates. I did see, I believe Katz took something to the BMA this week about funding for the garage, which, you know, phase 1 was the new transit center, phase 2 is the garage. I think, is Candace on as a attendee?
Don't think so.
She was earlier, but she's. Oh, did you move her? Okay, Candace Shearer. Do you have an update on the transit stuff?
That was an Improve Act fund or project, I believe, in it.
Yes.
The garage.
Yes.
Really good.
And I'm not getting a response, or she's on mute. So, but that was the only thing I have from transit. And we've also, I noticed Candace Gump was on as an attendee. She has reached out about, you know, getting together and discussing stuff. I believe the funding has been, I don't know if it's been finalized, but they were working on some formulas to get NetTrans some of the urbanized funds. So being a little bit more involved with NetTrans as that happens. So maybe just meeting with them and their staff like we do periodically with CATS.
I think the report was complete, but I don't think it's been signed off on, which includes the share of funds.
Okay, if there's nothing else, our chairman has to be somewhere. So Jimmy, can you finish up with the public comment and the meeting adjournment?
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, Jimmy, if you'll finish up, I got to be in Churchill by 4 o'clock. See you all.
Be safe, man. All right, moving to the second to last item. I'd like to open up the virtual meeting to public comments. And I'm assuming that between Michael and Leslie, y'all can figure out who needs to be on.
Yep, we're watching.
Yep, just raise your hand if there's any attendees that has any question. Okay, Mr. Taggart, hang on just a second. All right, Ken, you should be able to talk if you unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for giving me another chance to speak. With the vote today, I want to clarify. Did we go from a 4-lane, $44 million project now irrevocably to a 5-lane, $88 million? I mean, there's not going to be any other agencies that have to vote on this. Is this written in stone now? Is that we're a 5-lane project now?
Well, it should have been a 5-lane anyway, because the way it was in the long range plan, it said a 4-lane to match the Washington County portion. Well, the Washington County portion is 5-lane. So just changing that description, you know, to add a lane is not adding $44 million to this project. That what's changed was the 2017 was just an early estimate, and now this new figure is based on a technical report, so it should be more accurate. But it's like a 3.5 mile section, and you're going from a 2-lane, 3-lane in some areas to a 5-lane with sidewalks on both sides. So, you know, there was sidewalks or shoulder.
Well, what we've been hearing. Yeah, what we've been hearing is part of the reason the 4-lane was considered is because of the geography, and the creek that runs through this area and stuff was going to cause problems with getting a 5-lane in there, and it was going to cost so much more, and blah blah blah. And yeah, originally that we were told it was going to be 5-lane the whole way, which is, like I said, is more desirable because with a turn lane, you're not going to be blocking traffic like you would in a 4-lane with somebody trying to make turns off the highway. So obviously we'd rather have a 5-lane with the sidewalks and all that. But what we're really concerned about is that the added cost is going to keep pushing this thing back farther and farther and farther and farther. And I can't tell you how displeased I am with Mr. Russell and the DOT with not even being able to tell us when the environmental surveys or any of the surveys, when they were even started. I mean, that should be information that's readily available to him. Hopefully that's why he's here, so that we can ask questions and get answers. You know, we'd like to get answers on it, definitive answers. Not, well, maybe we'll get it done in spring of 2022. You know, and we'd like to also be able to have consistency. We haven't had consistency from DOT. We keep talking to different people every time there's a meeting. Since Danny Oliver was the DOT guy. It'd kind of be nice if we could, if Mike Russell's going to be the guy, I want to see Mike Russell at all these meetings from now on. So, you know, and so that we know who to target when we want an answer and we're not getting it.
Thank you, Mr. Taggart, for your comments. Is there anyone else on the floor, Leslie, Michael, who'd like to speak?
You didn't.
Don't see any. I don't see any additional.
Leslie, you neither?
Mm-mm.
Seeing or hearing none, the public comment section is now closed, and the floor is open for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion, Jimmy. This is Blake at VDOT.
This is Rhonda. I second the motion.
I'll do a roll call vote for this too. I don't know that we have to, but just to be safe.
Thank you.
Okay, so Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins.
Aye.
Blake.
Aye.
Chase.
Aye.
Rhonda.
Aye.
And Jennifer.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Be sure and go vote. Go vote.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Best wishes to everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.